Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor. So far we're only a few episodes in, but I'm still having a blast doing this podcasting thing, so I think I'll keep doing it for a while. Now, when I started this, I definitely wanted to feature a few guests who obviously the first instinct was to go with a lot of, good friends of mine who I've known for a while, who I've had a long history with. Now, my guest this week is, you've heard, my two buddies, Eric and Corey, in the last 2 episodes. I've got a long history with those guys. This week's guest, I don't really have as much of a history, but I do know him, and we've definitely had a few interactions over the last 2 years or so. I met him right around the time when my band Vertebreaker first started. He's definitely someone I got along with right off the bat, and he's given me the honor of being the first 2-time guest on his podcast, which is called First and Monday. It also is hosted and is named after his website, firstandmonday.com. So I would definitely consider this guy a friend, but it's a little different because it's like, I don't know him as well as, say, Corey or Eric or, any of those guys. So it's going to be interesting. So, needless to say, this is going to make for a very unique episode of the Phoenix Report. But knowing what I do know about this guy, I know that he is never at a loss for words. So I'm just going to go right into it. So I'm going to welcome to the Phoenix Report the man behind First and Monday podcast, the artist currently known as Bruce Harris.
Jack, how are you tonight? I
am doing great, man. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this. Like we had mentioned off the air that I definitely wanted to give credit to guys who have had me on their podcasts, and since I'm kind of new into the podcasting game, I kind of wanted to pay it forward a little bit and definitely wanted to return the favor. So I'm glad you could take the time to talk to me for a little bit.
Yeah, bro, for sure. I've caught your first 2 episodes, and you're doing great work. You're a true frontman by nature, not just in the rock and roll sense, but in the sense that you need to be in front of a camera, in front of a mic. If you weren't doing rock and roll, I think you could pull off a TV news anchor. Coming up at 11 o'clock, Jack Connor with the news.
Very cool. You just call me the Tom Brokaw of rock and roll then. Nice. Good stuff, man.
As long as you're not the Brian Williams claiming you were on a stage that you actually weren't.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, if I'm sort of the Anderson Cooper, Tom Brokaw, I guess that would make you the Howard Stern of podcasts, because you definitely ask the tough questions and you're always entertaining.
Well, I appreciate that. And back in the day, I actually looked a little bit like Howard Stern. I had the long curly hair, and I'm half Jewish, so I had the half Jew nose hook going on there. And, of course, Howard being the king of all media, you got to respect that.
Right. You were rocking the old Louis XIV look?
Some people used to refer to me as Tiny Tim, which I took great offense to because I don't play the ukulele. And that guy was kind of a mongoloid, but more of a Kenny G look, if you know what I'm what I'm talking about.
Right on. Now it's funny because when you and I first met, or at least the first time you and I were aware of each other, was really when like the band was first starting, and I didn't know this until like a little bit later, and you reminded me. I think you may have contacted me when we were looking for a bass player. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been a musician for a very long time, Jack, and I'm always checking out the local Craigslist ads, and it's mostly full of garbage. But I came across your ad, and I remember it was you because you referenced some bands from the west coast of Florida that you had been in, and I checked out some links, and I was like, wow, this guy can actually sing. And that's the most important thing in any band is can the singer sing? Is he presentable? Do the lyrics catch you? Do the melodies catch you? I've heard a bunch of really good bands, but the singer just wasn't up to par. But I heard your voice. I was like, yeah, this is really legit. And so, yeah, I think we did exchange a couple of flirtatious emails at one point.
Definitely. If I could just, kind of give some context for you and for the listeners, Vertebreaker did have one bass player originally starting out. he ended up leaving because he was going off to school, and we ended up with Rod Bobo, who's been with the band almost from the beginning. I mean, ever since, he's one of those guys where it's like, I guess technically he wouldn't be an original member, but like he's been with us almost from the beginning, so I kind of consider him an original member anyway. But he had known Ryan Cowell, our guitar player, who's like one of the other guys who I started the band with. So it kind of happened, sort of organically that way, where Rod came into the band. But I remember when you and I first met, or at least when the band first started going, it was funny because you were like, "Hey man, if Rod doesn't work out, I'm just saying I'm available." So
right.
So
yeah.
I definitely appreciate that, and I'm sorry we never really got to bring you in for an audition or anything like that. But it's just, sometimes that's how these things work out. So are you still playing right now? I know the podcast and the website is kind of your main deal, but have you been playing with anybody recently?
I've got a home studio, and I write some songs, some soundtracks, some jingles that I've been doing. In fact, I don't know if you've heard of trunkclub.com. That's a website where they'll send you like a trunk full of hipster clothes, and you only pay for what you keep, and then you mail the trunk back. But I've written some jingles for them, and for First and Monday, I've written some theme songs there. So it's I keep myself busy in my own studio, but I'd rather do that and do all the instruments rather than go out to Canaveral Groves and play some Fish cover songs with a bunch of washed up hippies. No offense to washed up hippies that might be listening to this, by the way.
Oh no! Hey, there's nothing wrong with playing covers. That's that's always fun. I mean, if it's something you enjoy.
Well, yeah, as long as it's not Fish covers. But anyway.
Okay. Clearly you're not a Fish fan. Okay.
The good news is the Grateful Dead played their last show, so we can close that chapter on the Book of Rock.
Gotcha. So I'm just going to take a stab in saying that you're not necessarily a fan of the jam bands.
It's pretty odd because jam bands, as a rule, do not jam, at least in my book.
Interesting. Explain.
When I think of jamming, I'm thinking of like MC5. I'm thinking of like the presidents of the United States of America. I'm thinking of getting up there and jamming, not just going off on 15-minute noodle solos and letting the bass player play the Hammond organ. That's not jamming.
Interesting. All right. I see where you're coming from. So you're meaning jams as in like MC5, kick out the jams kind of deal. I can dig that.
Exactly. I can tell already that you're picking up what I'm laying down.
Very cool, man. So that's interesting. So you don't just play bass as well. You play guitar and drums and sing a little bit?
I do everything but drums. For that, I'll get some sample drums and chop them up, mix them up in the studio blender and try to fit the track I'm going for. But yeah, I play guitar, bass, keys, and I do sing. Well, that's debatable, but I give it my best shot. I was actually a guitar player first, back in the high school days, back when I was in a hair metal band. I was rocking a Kramer guitar. Those things are definitely antique. And joined up with a band from Satellite Beach, Florida, which is Jack's backyard right now. And I was going to play rhythm guitar, and the lead singer, who is now out in LA, who's a producer and a solo artist by the name of Linus of Hollywood, Linus Dotson. He was our lead guitar player and our lead vocalist, and I was going to play rhythm guitar. And our buddy Todd Schron was a phenom on the drums at only age 15. And then I went away for a 2-week vacation to Europe with my mom and got back. And they said, hey, dude, because back in the day, you didn't say bro, you said dude. They said, hey, dude, we found this other rhythm guitar player, but not only does he play rhythm, he actually sings harmonies. He's kind of like the Richie Sambora to the Bon Jovi harmony vocalist. So we're going to let him play. If you want to play bass, I guess that'd be cool. And I was like, what? Bass? What? So long story short, I traded my Kramer guitar for a bass, and most of my musical career has been on 4 or 5 strings instead of 6.
Nice. How did you handle that transition? Did you end up kind of liking the bass, or did you feel more comfortable on bass after a while, or was it a tougher thing to switch from guitar to bass?
Well, a couple of my bass heroes were Nikki Sixx, all-time rock star.
Yes, he's awesome.
And Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses, and both of those guys play with a pick. So I started off playing bass like a guitarist, just banging the heck out of it with my pick. So that was not too hard of a transition. And then I started figuring, you know what? When I was playing guitar, Steve Harris from Iron Maiden always stood out, and that's when I started using my fingers. So it wasn't that hard of a transition. And I'm not sure how many of your listeners are fans of the heavy metal band Wasp, but their lead vocalist Blackie Lawless, he was originally the bass player and singer, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, he decided to drop the bass and pick up a guitar. And his famous quote was, "Bass is an instrument of ignorance," to which Nikki Sixx had some retorts. But
Wow.
It just goes to show that most bass players, including myself, are frustrated guitar players. So after that band in high school, where the lead guitar player, lead vocalist taught me a lot about songwriting and composition, I still played bass in my future bands, but I would always write most of the songs on guitar and show the guitar riffs to the guitar players, and then just write a bass line under that.
Very interesting. It's funny, going back to what you said, Nikki and Duff and Steve Harris, all three of those bass players, all three great players, all three great songwriters as well. So it's that's one of the reasons why I love those guys as well. But it's interesting what you say about Blackie saying something like that. I had no idea he felt that way, but it's so it's like he gave up being the bass player in Wasp. I guess I wonder how the guy who took over for him on bass in Wasp felt about that. But that's a little weird. Hey, I want to be somebody. All right.
Nice reference there.
Nice. Hey, you were talking about putting together jingles and theme songs. I gotta say, it brought a smile to my face to hear the First and Monday closing theme song. I love the line "putting hair on your chest, just like Paul Stanley."
Yeah, it's funny with we're into the upper 80s as far as episodes go, and we could probably be to 100 by now, but I kind of slack off and take 1 week off here or there. But most of and usually every week I try to have a musician on. Sometimes I strike out and we just have a stand-up comedian or a athlete. Not that that's a bad thing, but we've had so many bands on the First Monday podcast, and when I'm talking to these dudes, the overwhelming majority of them say they got their start from either one or two sources. 1 or 2 bands gave them their start. Jack, what would you guess those 1 or 2 bands would be?
Well, let's see. I'm guessing Kiss is one of them.
Right. Good segue.
Yeah, which it was for me, by the way. Let's see, the other band, I would probably say maybe either like Metallica or maybe the Beatles, if I wanted to go back that far.
Okay, you're 50%. Kiss, because we were just talking about them, and of course the other one being Nirvana.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
All right, so I talked to a lot of dudes that were turned on to music and picked up a guitar because of Kiss, and I was not in that camp. To me, they were just like a carnival act. I was not a card-carrying member of the Kiss Army. But Paul Stanley, he's still an icon. Gene Simmons, still an icon. So yes, in the First Monday podcast theme song, I had to pay homage to Paul Stanley's chest hair. You are correct.
It is. Very nice. Homage to the chest hair. I love that. It's funny that you say that because Greg, the guitar player in my band, he was kind of the same way, where I think, well, part of it was like he grew up in a very like religious household, and like there were certain bands that he wasn't allowed to listen to. So it's like he almost feels like he kind of missed out on the Kiss boat a little bit. But I mean, I think he appreciates them now. He's just, didn't quite have that original fandom that I guess you do. Maybe it just starts when you're younger. Maybe it's easier for them to capture the imagination that way. But I mean, it's like anything else. It's not for everybody. So and there's certainly nothing wrong with being a fan or not being a fan, and because that's the beauty of rock and roll. There's so many different artists that have been throughout the history, and so many different sounds and approaches to it. There's no really one way to do it, and I think that's the beauty of it.
All right, and I know I've asked you this before, but I don't know if your listeners have heard this. Obviously, with you being on my show a couple of times, we've covered this, but for your listeners that may not have heard it, which band got you into rock and roll?
Oh, well, I kind of covered this a little bit on my on the intro episode, but I mean, I mentioned this before, but when I was 11, I think my aunt gave me like my first Beatles tape. I'm dating myself a little bit because it was cassette tapes, but yeah, it was that. So like they first kind of got me thinking about being in a band, but really like when I was 13, it was it was Kiss. Kiss was definitely one of them, but also like Queen and Metallica, Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Black Sabbath, all the way down the line to what was going on at the time. So that's really where that came from.
You mentioned Queen, and recently Kanye has been getting a lot of flap for his Queen performance. Given your vast rock and roll knowledge of who's still available, meaning still alive, who do you think should be the front man for Queen if they could pick anybody right now?
Well, I mean, right now they got Adam Lambert from American Idol. He was on there a few years ago, and from what I hear, he's just killing it right now. And they've been doing a lot of touring in Europe. He's not. I mean, I always viewed him as more of like a pop guy than a rock guy, but I mean, he's definitely got the range for it. I don't know though, because you're talking about like taking Freddie Mercury's place, and Freddie, I will go on record. I think he was the greatest frontman of all time.
He was amazing, and just thinking about his range and thinking about somebody that's also a good frontman. I don't know if you Queensryche, like I Queensryche, but I think Jeff Tate could pull off some Queen.
That'd be interesting. I mean, I've heard them like cover stuff like deep tracks like Innuendo before, and yeah, I mean it's interesting. I don't know. I mean I don't know how. I've been hearing mixed reports, and I've heard mixed things about how good Jeff Tate's voice is still now. But even Jeff Tate past his prime is still pretty good. But let's go talk about First and Monday for a little bit. So you were in a few bands for a little while during the hair metal days. What was the name of your old band, by the way?
The band in high school was called Nightfall. That's
Nightfall. Pretty
ominous. Yes.
There were a lot of night bands back in the day.
yeah, there were. But it was Nightfall, one word, which sort of set us apart.
Okay, there you go.
And from there, going into the sort of mid-'90s, more like alternative Jane's Addiction type bands. One was called Trippin' Balls. No explanation necessary.
That speaks for itself.
Another one was called Glass Hippie. Most of the bands I've been in, I've actually named. And Glass Hippie is one of my favorite names. Just as listeners hear it, Glass Hippie, they're conjuring all sorts of different things. It was from the Melbourne Square Mall. There used to be a crystal shop. And within the crystal shop, there were different figurines. And one section had a bunch of different like little druids in there, glass crystal druids. And I was thinking to myself, well, what if, 100 or 200 years from now, instead of druids being the archetype, they're throwing it back to the 60s, and they're going to have like little glass hippies being there. So that was the name of that band. It was a sort of a three-piece alternative metal alt-rock band, if you will.
Very interesting. Very forward thinking. It's kind of interesting to think about. You might be right about that. I guess time will tell. So yeah, you'd played in a bunch of bands over the years. When did you decide to like transition into like website and like podcasting, like multimedia stuff? Was that always something you had wanted to do, or?
Well, good question. As far as podcasting, that goes back to just being on the radio, just being a DJ. And growing up, I had a couple of records given to me, handed down to me by my parents. I'm talking to records, LPs,
Oh yeah, vinyl.
vinyl, and one of them was Robin Williams live album, and he was telling jokes so over my head as I'm like a 12-year-old listening to him, but I could recite them word for word without actually knowing what the punchline meant.
Right.
And another one was Cheech and Chong, who I think are criminally underrated, just because people say, "Oh, they're stoners. That's just drug humor." The stuff they did on recordings, on tape or on album, the skits that they pulled off, the characters they played were really amazing. And so I grew up thinking, wow, audio is where it's at. You don't have to be on camera. You can just be speaking into a mic and being these different characters, or saying these jokes and being entertaining. So that's where the podcasting bug first hit me. As far as the website, I'm a huge college football fan, Jack, and there's a big difference between pro football and college football. I'll liken it to this, that pro football fans are kind of like country fans, whereas whichever team, whichever artist is in vogue, they'll show up in throngs. They'll show up to support that. The stadium will be full of that big number one country hit artist. But as soon as somebody else comes along, they'll be packing that stadium for them. Whereas college football is more about a cult following, more about growing up, more about being a Nirvana fan when you're a kid and sticking true to that. College football is really a cult following, and the word fan comes from fandom. So college football is, their fans are fanatics. So what I'm trying to get at is that being a fanatic of college football, my team is the Miami Hurricanes, in case anyone cares.
Okay. That was going to be my
I
next
not only
question.
follow my team, all right, I not only follow my team, but I follow the recruiting. Which high school players are going to sign to play for the University of Miami? Well, there's a website called rivals.com that tracks all that. They track these guys from the time they're 16 till the time they're 18 or 19 and finally sign their letter of intent. And that website has a message board called the main board, and it's just the Wild West. Barely any college football, barely any sports is talked about whatsoever. It's mostly, what did you have for lunch? Dating this chick, can you give me this advice? I'm driving this kind of car. What's the trade-in value? Just all sorts of off-topic subjects go on this message board. And any of the listeners that know about message boards knows what they're like. So I was a member of that message board for years and years. And all of a sudden, one of the more prominent members, who actually happened to be a moderator of the board, started a random thread saying, "Hey, I'm starting a project. Give me your burner email." I didn't even know what that meant. Apparently that means an email you don't want traced back to you. But give me your burner email, and I'm going to pick some people. So he chose about 20 members of that college football message board to start a new website. And his vision, and his screen name, by the way, is eMoney. We usually don't deal in real names, just in case we upset somebody's feelings. But his screen name is eMoney, and his vision was to say, hey, all of us spend most of our time at work doing one of two things: doing actual work and also messing around on the internet. And how many websites do you go on during the day on the internet? Well, most people go to like 10 or 12. Well, I go to this website for this news, this website for that news, blah, blah, blah. What if we could be your one-stop shop for all things internet? So that was the genesis of firstofmonday.com. So we picked people that had different specialties and different areas, and basically that's what we're doing at firstofmonday.com, is trying to be your one-stop shop for all things internet. Our slogan is, because the alternative is work. If you're not hanging out with us at work, you're probably doing real work, and we're sure you get your real work done on time, under budget, on schedule. But when you got that one extra tab open that you don't want your boss to see, hit up First on Monday. We'll give you sports updates, music updates, humor, recipes, beer. Everybody likes beer. We got lots of beer articles. So that's pretty much it, Jack.
I love it, man. Yeah, I mean, the website is great. There's so much stuff on it. I was trying to do a little research before getting you on here. I was trying to go through it, but like there was just so much to it that it was tough for me to to explore it all and to really like get a full grasp of it. So I'm glad you're here to explain that. Did the website itself come before the podcast?
No, the website came first, and as I was looking for a role to play within the organization, I was telling these guys, well, I can write some music articles. I've written let's see, I did a top 11 because top 10 is not metal enough. So,
right,
it has to be top 11.
Different.
Right. Well, it's got to be Spinal Tap, go to 11. I've done
11.
Right, exactly. Right. This one still has Jimmy Page's tagger on it. Don't even look at that. But,
right.
but top 11 rock and roll T-shirts article. I could do easily. Top 11 iconic guitars. I could do easily. But I also told them, you know what? I've always wanted to sort of host a radio show, and as a musician, maybe I could reach out to some other musicians and do a podcast. So they had me do a couple of demos, and that's how I fell into that.
That's awesome. I mean, it's funny. The podcasting thing is so huge right now. It's really become, like I've always said, it's like an extension of your personality, and it's almost just like, like the new. It's almost gone the way of the blog, where it's like people use it to express themselves, and it's a great format, and it's much less restrictive than like traditional radio is, where you have to go from segment to segment. You have more control over it. So, I mean, I love it, and it sounds like you have a blast with it.
I do, and I'm not sure which podcasts you listen to. Perhaps you can plug some here in a second. But for the listeners, besides the old school Cheech and Chong and Robin Williams stuff that I was listening to, more recently, Jay Moore, who's an actor and stand-up comedian, I listen to his podcast every week, and he is just an amazing interviewer. His laugh is just contagious. The guest could just say something mildly funny, and he just cackles, and it just makes you want to laugh with him. And he gets like A-lists guys, to come into his garage and be interviewed. So that's a great podcast to listen to if you're looking for something else to put in your ears. And also Joe Rogan. I'm not a big mixed martial arts guy. But Joe Rogan, as a stand-up comedian, I've been a fan of, and his podcast is mind-blowing. He does it 3 times a week, and each one is like 3 hours long. So if you've got that kind of time to kill, he'll bring on astrophysicists, he'll bring on fighters, he'll bring on grizzly bear hunters. You never know who he's going to bring on, and he's uncensored. It's unedited. I mean, it's just 3 hours of him talking to a guest. And a lot of times you'll actually hear him getting high on mic while he's doing it and expanding his mind. The Joe Rogan Experience, what it's called, is definitely a good podcast to listen to. What's on your playlist, Jack?
Man, I think the one I listen to most of all is actually taken from terrestrial radio. It's the number one morning drive show in Philadelphia, where I grew up. It's called the Preston and Steve Show, and it's interesting because they take their morning show and they edit it down into a podcast format and have it like on demand 5 days a week. So it's pretty cool for me to kind of catch up with their show and get a little taste of home every day. I mean, I also listen to a couple different stuff. I love Kevin Smith. I'm a big comic book fan, so he has a podcast called Fat Man on Batman, where he'll talk about, Batman and all comic related stuff. And, I also like a lot of I'm a big pro wrestling fan. And so, I'll get into, some of the different wrestling podcasts. I like Steve Austin and Chris Jericho and Jim Ross. All those guys have some pretty good podcasts. And every now and then, like, I think up until recently, Roddy Piper had one. So it's kind of funny to hear him get all fired up as well.
Okay. one more question: Geno's or Pat's?
Hey, wait a minute. Is this my show or yours? I don't know. I'm just kidding. To be honest, I'm not really much of a cheesesteak guy. I know that's kind of sacrilege. So, to say that, so I can't really decide. I kind of grew up in the suburbs anyway, so I didn't really spend as much time at Pat's or Geno's as I would like. But so I mean, you talk about guys like Rogan and Jay Moore and everything. Those guys are stand-up comics. They're funny guys. Would you say that those guys are like really big influences as far as your style of podcasting and interviewing?
I would say yes. Just like a guitar player will try to mimic what he hears, or a vocalist will. I mean, during the mid '90s, how many vocalists tried to sound like Eddie Vedder or Kurt?
Sure.
It's just natural. Just natural. Whatever you put in your ears, you try to mimic when you're talking. That's how people learn. That's how infants learn to speak. You repeat what you hear. And so listening so much Jay Moore, listening to so much Joe Rogan, and even before that, even before podcasts existed during the 90s, I listened to a whole ton of the Jim Rome radio show. When I listen back to my own episodes, I'm like, oh, wait, you're trying to sound like him. And I'm not consciously trying to do it, but it just comes out. Your influences come out. You wear your influences on a sleeve, just like a musician.
Hey man, we're all guilty of it, and it's just, and like you said, I mean, like everyone, we are products of our environment. So of course we want to emulate the people who we admire and the people who we're fans of, while still obviously trying to put our own spin on things. That's it's completely normal. We talk about interviewing. I definitely noticed, certain styles in the way that, the couple times that I've been on your show, the way you've interviewed me. And I really have to give you a lot of credit because, you've always asked me a lot of like really challenging, tough questions, and not in a way of like being confrontational or being salacious. But I mean, in a way, it's been great for me as a guy in a band because I have experience with a guy who's going to kind of keep me on my toes a little bit, and not necessarily try to make me uncomfortable, but almost just like kind of catch me off guard and everything. So I think it's great for me because it gives me as a guy in a band experience to deal with guys who might not necessarily throw me softballs all the time. So I have to give you a lot of credit for that.
I appreciate that, and I think some of the comfort zone comes from the off mic stuff that I try to do, and some of the post editing, and in particular, I won't name names, but I had one musical artist who had a long-term battle with addiction, and we talked at great lengths about that, as well as playing a couple of his really great songs, really great singles. And then after that segment ended, I went to Mixdown. I was editing everything, and I got a text from him saying, hey, could you sort of edit most of that stuff out? I don't really want this to be about addiction. And I was like, yeah, no problem. That's cool. I mean, whatever the guest wants. So, when you go to edit, it's real easy to take stuff out. You can't put stuff in, but it's easy to take it out if the guest is not comfortable with it.
Well, and that's a really great attitude of you to have, because a lot of guys might not necessarily do that. A lot of guys might be going after sort of shocking and confrontational stuff, and because they want to try and get some drama out of it. And I understand that, I guess that can be compelling radio, but it's but I definitely always appreciate it when guys try to take the high road and not necessarily try to violate somebody's trust on there, because I think that's I think that gives off a little bit more of a positive vibe, and so like I said before, like you weren't, when I was on your show, you wouldn't necessarily try to like make me uncomfortable, but you definitely kind of keep me on my toes a little bit and try to get some good stuff out of there. So I mean, I definitely understand that, and I appreciate not taking any cheap shots.
Yeah, you're welcome, bro. And all right, so let me ask you an interviewer question.
All right, go for it.
Since we're at a segue here, Where do you see your show in 5 years from now?
That's a good question, man. I mean, it's obviously, like anything else you put out on the internet for free. This hasn't made me a dime yet, I'll be honest with you. That would be cool if it did. It would be cool if it got popular enough where I could, make a little bit of money from it, have it as a little side business. But, honestly, that's not really why I got into it necessarily. It was just sort of it was kind of something I wanted to do, just sort of a way to express myself and to kind of almost have an excuse to have really good conversations with my friends and with people I admire. And so I don't know. It's hard to tell because I've got a full-time job, I've got the band, I've got a lot of other stuff going on. So it's who knows where this is going to be in 5 months' time or a year or in 5 years' time. It's tough to say, but it's one of those things. I'm kind of taking it day by day, and I think when it stops being fun for me and when it stops being efficient, with my when I stop having time to do it, then I think that's when I'll stop. But I mean, for right now, I'm having a blast. I mean, I'm sure same as you are. I mean, I know you. Well, you've been around for a while, so you probably have much more of a stake in it than I do with mine at this point.
All right, and here's a warning. You can edit this out. So when you proposed to your fiance, your then girlfriend, after she just ran a half marathon, how stinky was she?
She wasn't that bad, actually. She always jokes she's like, Jack, I don't sweat, I sparkle. There's a difference. I'm like, okay. No.
Nice.
It was funny because when you had me on that second time, I wasn't expecting at all for you to ask me about me proposing to my girl or anything like that or any personal stuff. But it was cool to talk about because she's awesome, and I definitely it definitely took me a while to explain to her what the whole podcasting thing was all about, because she's not really much of a podcast person, but she was like, well, are you getting paid for this? I'm like, well, no, but I mean, I might if it becomes popular, but it's just kind of something fun to do. So I definitely want to try and have Christina on at some point, just because she's such a character, and it would definitely probably make for a very compelling podcast. Probably wouldn't. She'd probably just bust my chops constantly on the air, but it would definitely be entertaining to listen to, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, as far as your style of podcasting and everything you do with the website, one thing I noticed about it a lot is that it's very much geared toward guys. It's very much like a guy thing. And so I guess my question to you is that what do you think defines manliness in 2015?
Being able to change your own flat tire, being able to change your own oil, neither of which I could do personally.
Okay, good, because I have a hard time with that too. Being able to
trim your own beard, that I can do. Yeah, I think a big part about manliness is beards. Maybe fly casting, fishing might be considered manly. I mean, it's just one big cliche, When you start a website or a magazine, and we liken our website to a magazine or any publication, which might be weekly, monthly, in our case daily, you have to go after a demographic. And we're going after the 25 to 40-year-old, 44-year-old dude that lives in the southeast United States. That's where most of our owners come from, most of our contributors come from. And by the way, if you guys like message boards, we've got a very active one on the First and Monday forums. That's where most of our internet users come from because they're SEC fans. As I told you earlier, this all started from college football, and of course, the Southeastern Conference is the king of college football, or at least it had been until Ohio State won last year, but they're a bunch of dirty cheaters. Anyway, so our demographic is sort of in the bottom right hand of the country, and a bunch of 25 to 44-year-old dudes.
it definitely caters to that demographic very nicely. And, it's funny, you said like beards and everything. I do not have one currently, but I do know how to trim mine when I get it. So that's, so I've got that going for me.
Yeah, you got to use the 5 guard on the cheeks and the 4 guard right there on the chin and the mustache area.
There you go, kids. You heard it first. So, it's funny, all the stuff you mentioned about college football, and I meant to bring this up earlier. Having grown up in the Northeast, outside of Philly, like when I moved to Florida when I was 15, I didn't really understand what the big deal about college football was. I noticed that living in this part of the country, how passionate the base is for college football, and I didn't really understand it. And it wasn't like really until recently. I guess when I met my wife, who is sorry to say this, to disappoint you, but she is actually a huge Florida State fan. She went there, so she's a big fan of the Seminoles. But like when I went to a game with her and another couple that we're good friends with, I kind of understood, and like talking to her friend's husband, who was like from Tallahassee, who was a diehard Florida State fan, and he had never gone to Florida State. So I was like kind of curious, like why he was so passionate, and he kind of explained to me, it's like, look, man, growing up outside of Tallahassee, we didn't have any pro teams here. They were my home team, and I grew up with it. So it's like, oh, okay. So I mean, I kind of get it.
Well, I spoke earlier on the analogy of pro football being country music, whereas college football is rock and roll. And I think another telling analogy is that pro football is more like pro boxing, where you just find a boxer you like, a heavyweight, bantamweight, whatever. You just follow his career no matter where you're from. But whereas wrestling, pro wrestling, even though it could be fake, opinions are out on that, is that the pageantry, the way the wrestlers enter the ring, I mean, you just get hooked. You're like, yes, I like these colors, I like these signs, I like this music. I mean, there's so much more pageantry in college football than there is pro. Just about every college football team has a marching band, and when they're not marching during halftime, you know where they go? They go into the stands. They have a special section just for them, and they play music on the marching band instruments throughout the whole game. All right, so like every third down, when your team's on defense and you got to stop that other team, a lot of these teams will be playing the Imperial Death March on marching band instruments. Dun, 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 dun. So it's this whole pageantry of it. It's colors, it's lights, it's sounds, whereas pro football is more like going to the mall and checking out a country artist or, watching a boxing match. So, there's a big difference as far as that goes.
Very interesting. It's an interesting way of putting it, obviously, and I think where you're going with the pro football analogy, comparing it to country music, I don't know if I would necessarily say country. I would say just sort of like popular music in general, whether it's pop, country, or like pop rock or hip hop or whatever it is. And I mean, I think, I don't know if you could compare that to a genre of music per se, but more like just the way in which it's portrayed, as it's more for like the casual fan, and whereas the college football is more for like the diehards. Would you say that would be a fair assessment?
More or less, except there's different genres of pop music. Hip hop, for instance, could be Oakland Raider fans, where if you go to hip hop concert, you're getting stabbed. And
not always.
I heard you laugh. And country music fans, new country. If you go to Jerry's World, where the Dallas Cowboys, the boys. How about them boys? It's basically just to be seen. And that stadium is so big now that they've actually got, and you know this from being a musician, about the standing room only sections of most arenas. They've got 100,000 seats, and then in the end zones, they've got like 40,000 standing room only seats that people that can't afford a regular seat to Jerry's World to watch a Cowboys game just will buy a standing room only seat to just like line up in the end zone where they can't even see. Because we're at a concert, the stage is elevated. If you're standing room only, at least you can look up and see somebody. But at a football game, they're just looking at nothing, just a flat field. They can't see anything from the end zone. So kudos to Jerry for marketing that thing.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that sounds just like a massive, just a massive stadium. I heard WWE is actually heading there for WrestleMania next year, and they're trying to do like a sort of like 100,000 people in there. So that would be incredible if they were able to pull that off.
It would, and condolences to you and yours for the passing of Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, it was crazy. My buddy Corey, who was on my first episode, he was in Tampa at the time, and we went to this autograph signing event in Tampa, and it was crazy. We were ready to go, and then we heard that was the day that Dusty passed. So it was pretty wild. Just like, we got to meet all these cool people, but it was a little sad because it's like, these guys were friends of Dusty, and just so that kind of did put a little bit of a damper on the situation. But yeah, man, just talk about one of your most beloved characters in the history of pro wrestling, and it's just everybody loved Dusty Rhodes. So it was that was definitely a big loss. Going back to we were joking around a little bit about your website and about manliness and everything, and obviously just sort of all the little stereotypical stuff that comes with that. But I guess on a little bit more of a serious note, I know that you're a father. I know that you have a young son, and what lessons of manliness, or I mean, I should say, what lessons in terms of how to be a man, what are the sort of things that you would impart on to your son as he grows up?
Really, if you haven't had a kid before, and my son has not yet, maybe soon. He's only 3. You never know.
Give him time.
Kids are amorous. Yeah. But one thing I did not know as a first-time father is that you're going to get sick, and you're going to get sick a lot. If you put your kid in preschool, as we have had to do, he's going to bring home all sorts of diseases, MERS, all sorts of stuff. West Nile he brought home the other day. I had to spank him for that, but yeah, you're going to get sick a lot just by association.
Wait a minute. You said you had to spank him?
2 weeks.
You had to spank him for bringing in the West Nile disease?
Yeah, well, you can't encourage that, Jack. If you encourage bringing home West Nile, I mean, what's next? HIV. I mean, you can't encourage bringing that home. So
wow. That's stiff, man.
2 weeks ago, I actually took a vacation day. Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I took a vacation day and had a 3-day weekend, and I was suffering from a stomach virus, thanks to him, the whole time. And this past weekend was the 4th of July weekend, and I was suffering, I still am, from an upper respiratory cold, thanks to him. So the biggest thing I can advise a new father or mother is vitamin C. And apparently I've got onto that a bit too late, but right after we hang up the phone, I'm going to go take some more vitamin C.
Okay, well, I hope you get well soon. And in defense of your boy there, I mean, I don't know your son, but I'm pretty sure he didn't bring those home intentionally. So I'm not telling you how to do your job. I would just keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything that's evident is relevant is a line I used to hear. And so, yeah, I mean, if he goes into preschool and he's mingling with these other kids, these disease-ridden kids, and he brings it home, well, is that my fault? No, that's probably my kid's fault. So,
it is what it is. I mean, these things happen, but yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you got a lot of good lessons to impart onto your boy. It sounds like he's got a pretty good role model. From what I know of you, you're a good man, and definitely best of luck, and and watching out for that young man and raising him right. I'm sure you're doing a great job, and I'm sure you will continue to do a great job with that. So that's awesome.
All right, I appreciate that. And if Rod happens to go down in a Piper or a Cessna crash, I can fill in on both guitar and bass. I'm just saying.
I will keep that in mind, and I will warn him. I will warn him to watch his back for any sudden attacks. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying you never know what could happen in this world, and I appreciate that, and definitely I would encourage you to keep playing. And have you given any thought to possibly getting back into the band scene? I mean, I know obviously you enjoy doing what you're doing now, but is that something that you have any desire to revisit or to do again?
Always on the lookout. I've got sort of high standards. I'm sort of like a chick that's like a 7 on the 10 scale, but they won't date anybody that's less than a 9 or at least a 9. And I'm always looking for something, but I'm not going to dedicate that sort of time that it takes to be proficient and tight and cohesive as a team and as a unit, unless it's something that really blows my mind. And it's hard to find that sort of original act that really does it. In fact, the last couple of really good bands I've been in were based out of Orlando, where I would drive an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, just to practice 3 times a week, just because they were that good. But even that's hard to find these days.
Definitely. I mean, it's kind of funny. I'm sort of doing that now. I live over in Winter Garden near Orlando, and the rest of the band is out in Melbourne, so I'll drive out to them once a week now. But I mean, obviously, I got the band together and met everybody when I was living in Melbourne. So even though I'm not anymore, it's like now I'm kind of making that commute. But I mean, yeah, if you're going to do something like that and dedicate your time and your efforts into something, then it absolutely should be something that you enjoy and something that you're excited about. And so no, I mean, I don't think you're off base at all for having those standards. So I think so I certainly don't blame you for that. So hopefully one day, if it's something that you're still interested, that you find the right situation or the right group of guys, and hopefully you can get after it. It's it's a lot like dating. It's probably crazier than dating in a lot of ways. So it's yeah, I mean, hopefully if the right situation comes along, then I would encourage you to just go for it, have fun, and do what you want to do.
I appreciate it, man, and I appreciate you having me on episode 3 of this podcast.
Absolutely, man, and I definitely appreciate you coming on. It's definitely had a lot of laughs, a lot of good conversation here. Before we go, is there anything else you want to plug? I mean, I know you have firstandmonday.com, but is there anything else that you want to promote or put out there before we close it up here?
Yeah, right on. So thanks for checking us out. It's firstandmonday.com, your one-stop shop for all things internet. And you can follow us on Twitter at First and Monday, and also Facebook/First and Monday. And if you want to see the face behind the voice, at thebruceharris at firstandmonday.com.
All right, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on, and it's really been a pleasure. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we are on one another's shows in some capacity.
What's up with the acoustic show at the Boondocks? Why can't they have you play a full show?
Well, they can. It's just it's just an acoustic night. It's something they do every now and then, just to kind of do something different. We did one back in January, and it was a blast. And so yeah, we're excited to do that again. This coming Saturday, at least from the time we post this. So I'll definitely be plugging my shows as we wrap it up here. But yeah, no, I love doing acoustic shows. I think it shows a different side of the band, and it's always received well.
Yeah, it's just weird that it's like a Saturday night, which is a big club night that they're doing that. But then Brett, who's who I'm friends with on Facebook, was posting something else that they're like getting a new PA system or something in there. So I was just curious about that. That was out of necessity, or you wanted an acoustic night as a new owner? It was kind of weird.
No, I mean, I don't know really. I mean, I know Brett took over for Sam recently over there. He's always worked great with us before. He's a great sound guy, and I think it was. That was an event that was set up before that whole transition took place. So I think it's just it's something that the promoters put together, and it's just kind of do something different, kind of mix it up a little bit, and we love doing stuff like that and going outside of the box a little bit. So it's it's not a problem with us at all.
And I woke up early for my funerals on that bill as well.
Yeah. We the acoustic thing we did back in January, they were on it, or at least it was just Brandon and Ryan, the singer and guitar player from that band, who were doing it.
Yep.
Those guys are a great band. They're great friends of ours as well, and there are a few other artists on there as well, like Dominic St. Charles. I'm not familiar with him. Travis Daigle is a young hotshot guitar player and singer-songwriter. He's like got to be about like 19 or 20, but he's going to be on there as well. And Positive Chaos, I think, will be on there. They're a good band. So it's a really solid lineup, and it'll be a lot of fun.
And just between you and me, how stable is your drummer position right now?
It is very stable. We have had Jarrett has been in our band since August of last year, and he's just that guy's a dream to work with. I mean, he's just he's a super nice guy, great attitude, great player. You couldn't ask for anything more than that. So, and he came along, and I'm not going to go into too many details about that, but he came along at a really crazy transitional time for us. We had kind of gotten off sort of a bad breakup with the last guy who was in. And Jarrett was such a breath of fresh air and just made the band so much more fun to be in again. And he's awesome.
That is good to hear because, I mean, Spinal Tap nailed it when they went through so many drummers.
Right. Well, thankfully he had
in the movie.
Thankfully he hasn't spontaneously combusted yet, or died in a bizarre gardening accident, or choked on anyone else's vomit. So we got that going for us. Fingers crossed.
He choked on vomit. We can't prove whose vomit it was.
Exactly. Oh God, I got to go watch that movie.
All right,
again.
bro. This was fun.
All right, Bruce. Thank you so much for being on, man. And I will definitely catch up with you later.
All right, be good.
Take it easy. There you go, guys. Bruce Harris, the main man behind FirstandMonday.com and the First and Monday podcast. He's he's a character, man. He always has something to say. He's never at a loss for words. Entertaining guy. Definitely a unique character for sure. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I want to thank Bruce for coming on the show. Before I close up here, I do want to get off on a little bit of a tangent. Not so much of a rant, just sort of something that I went through today. And this has nothing to do with music or anything else. So I don't know if this is going to be entertaining or not, but I was recently looking for some part-time work. Just a way to make a little bit of extra cash. Just something like that. Just something extra in addition to everything I do right now. And I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with Uber, which is the taxi. And that's not really a taxi. It's more like a ride share service where people use the app, and if they want to get rides somewhere, they pay for somebody to come and get them. And so I was looking around for kind of an easy part-time gig, way to make a little a couple extra bucks, and someone suggested that I become an Uber driver. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's probably not a bad way to do something. I could kind of be my own boss, sort of set my own times, and not too bad of a gig. So I applied for it about maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and it took a long time to get the background check and all that stuff processed. And so I mean, just yesterday, I ended up getting officially approved for it. So what I did, I wanted to do a little research just to kind of see what it was like, to see if it would be something that I would enjoy, something, just kind of prepare myself for what this job might be. And basically, got a couple different, videos on YouTube and everything, just, talk about advice, giving driver advice on how to improve your rating and that sort of thing. Something stuck out to me that was a bit of a red flag, though, and I want to share that with you guys because apparently in the state of Florida, most auto insurers don't cover ride sharing, which by that I mean technically being a driver for Uber, at that point you're not using your car for personal use. It is then legally considered commercial use because you're using that, you're making money by using your car as a mode of transportation. So technically it is being used for commercial purposes. And most auto insurance companies do not cover that in their policy. At least not in the state of Florida. I don't know how it is in other parts of the country or other parts of the world wherever Uber may be. But it was something that was that I heard about, and I was like, wow, I better check and make sure that my insurance company, that my policy allows for that sort of thing. Because if, God forbid, I get in an accident or get pulled over or something and I need to provide insurance, then I don't think my insurance would cover that. And I called my insurance company and they don't cover. I explained to them my situation and they don't cover, using your car for services like Uber in terms of, being a driver and using that as a source of income, because then it is technically commercial use and their policy does not allow for that. And I don't think there are many other insurance companies. I'm not going to say which one I use, but but it seems like that may be a state law thing. I haven't researched that yet. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't, I'm no law expert. I'm not as well versed in whatever the state law may be regarding auto insurance and that sort of thing. But it was something I found out about that, and so because of that, I will not be an Uber driver, for as long as that is the case, especially because I don't want to put myself in that kind of position where, in the event of an emergency, I could end up being sued by one of the passengers, or or I could lose my ability to get car insurance, and I can't afford to take that risk. That's I'm sorry, no job is worth that sort of thing. So I don't know if this has been anyone else's experience, and I'm not trying to speak, I'm not saying don't use Uber or don't sign up to become a driver or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. I don't know, I find that interesting that Uber as a company would not let people know about that sort of thing. Like, because I don't know, maybe they did, maybe it just wasn't communicated to me, or maybe I didn't get that message. That they might do that for all I know. But I do know that they did a background check on me. They took a look at my license registration and proof of insurance. So they had to verify that I was an insured driver in order to hire me. And I managed to pass all that. But, again, they failed to remind me that my insurance policy does not cover commercial automobile use. So I don't know, just to me that's sort of a strange thing for a company like Uber to not mention to people who want to work for them. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure how a company their size is even able to get away with something like that. And maybe I don't know all the facts. I don't want to definitively say that this is the case for everybody. This was just what I went through in applying to that. So I don't know. That's just sort of a strange thing to me. If you guys have any thoughts on that, please let me know. And I don't know. It's a very bizarre thing, and I wanted to share that with you guys. It's not necessarily about entertainment or music or anything like that, but it's something that's that happened in my life and that I found out about today, and I thought I should share that with you guys. Just that just seems like a very, very strange thing to it's a bit of an oversight on Uber's part. So, or, I don't know. At least it seems that way. Maybe there's something I forgot to read or something. But that just seems like that's information you need to know. So that's that's where I stand with that. Before we wrap up this week, I want to take a second and talk about a certain bit of movie casting that I found out about this week. Some of you may know that there's been development in talks of a remake, or I should say, I don't know if it's a remake or a sequel, but it's a new movie in the Ghostbusters franchise. Apparently it's being directed by Paul Feig, who directed Bridesmaids and a lot of other things, and it's going to be starring Melissa McCarthy and Kate McKinnon and a lot of Saturday Night Live people. Well, they recently announced who would be playing the villain in the movie. I guess the character's name is going to be Rowan, but it is going to be played by a guy named Neil Casey. Now, some of you may recognize that name because he's done a few things over the years. He's mainly been a writer behind the scenes. He's worked for Saturday Night Live. He's worked for Inside Amy Schumer. He's done a lot of work with the Upright Citizens Brigade in both New York and L.A. over the years, and I think he is also on a Yahoo TV show. I forget the name of it, but he's definitely done a lot of things, and he's definitely made his way in the entertainment industry. Believe it or not, I actually knew this guy when I was a kid, like pretty well. He was actually a pretty good friend of my sister's in high school. It's pretty crazy. I mean, this guy used to be over my house regularly. He was just like one of the funniest people I had ever known at that point. I mean, he was just, even as a kid, he was just so quick-witted and so smart and so hilarious and just a really funny dude. And so, like, I don't think it was anyone's surprise that he would go on to work for Saturday Night Live or anything like that. He was just, just a really talented, smart guy. And it's just crazy to hear he's in this major Hollywood movie. He's going to have a pretty big role. So I'm so excited for Neil. I want to say congratulations to him. And Neil, if you're listening, give me a shout. I'm doing this little tiny podcast over here. And if you're interested and available, I would be more than happy to take some time to talk to you and have you as a guest. So I know that's probably not going to happen. I haven't seen or heard from this guy since I was a kid, but it's just still pretty crazy to see someone that you knew end up making it big. So congratulations, Neil Casey. I'm sure he's going to do a great job. Got a couple upcoming events that are coming up, a few gigs with Vertebreaker that I will be playing. As Bruce and I mentioned during the podcast, Saturday, July 11th, we will be playing at the Boondocks in Melbourne, Florida. This will be the name of this event is Stripped Down, and by that we mean it's going to be all acoustic. So this is the first time we have done this in quite a while. It's not the first time we've ever done it. We did it back in January, but we don't get to do this very often, and it's a really cool, unique experience. We love getting to play these acoustic shows because it really shows off a different side of the band, and you kind of hear our songs in a totally different way. Now joining us on that show will be I Woke Up Early for My Funeral, great band out of Orlando, good friends of ours, Dominic St. Charles, Travis Daigle, and the band Positive Chaos. So it's going to be a really great night of music over at the Boondocks on Saturday, July 11th. And this was just added just a few days ago. On Saturday, August 1st, we will be playing at the Landfill Saloon in Melbourne, which was formerly known as Club XS. We haven't played there since January of 2014. It's been a long, long time. But we are playing there because it is the CD release party of our friends Breathing Theory. They're just a great band from the Brevard County area, and those guys have been on tour for most of the summer. And so this is one of their first shows back in the Melbourne area since this is probably their first show back home since getting off of their tour this summer. So we're really excited to celebrate their CD release. They're great guys. They put on a great show, And also on that show is another band that we haven't played with since our first 2 shows, and that is Vilify, another one of Brevard County's greatest rock bands. Those guys are incredible, and we hadn't, like I said, our very first show was just us and Vilify at the 321 local in Cocoa, which isn't there anymore. But this will be at the Landfill Saloon in Melbourne, which was where Club XS used to be. So, I mean, we're there with Breathing Theory and Vilify. That's a great show. I mean, those are just 2 amazing bands. Definitely check them out if you get the chance. 2 of Brevard County's best rock bands right there, hands down. They're awesome. And finally later in August, on Friday, August 21st, we will be playing Heavy Metal Harvest 7, which is an original heavy metal concert series. We will be there. I'm not even sure if we're necessarily quote-unquote metal enough. We're not really like, I guess we're more of a hard rock band. But we're going to be at Heavy Metal Harvest along with Who Was I, a great veteran band that's been around the area for a long time. And we're also going to be there with Slick Wicked. I'm not familiar with those guys, but I'm sure they must be pretty good if they're going to be on this show. That will be at the Shady Oaks Lounge in Palm Bay, which is right near Melbourne. So that's going to be Friday, August 21st. It is 21 and over only. So if you're under 21, unfortunately, you can't do this one. But if you're 21 and over, it is a free show. It's absolutely free, no cover charge to get in. So this is going to be a good time. So that's some of the upcoming shows that we have right now. Really excited about that. Hopefully we get some more good gigs in the next couple weeks or the next couple months. I know we're going to be probably going to be heading into the studio for a little bit to record a few songs. I'm not sure if that's going to be just for a single or just for an EP, but there are a few songs that we've been playing for a while that we've wanted to give the proper studio treatment to. So that should be coming pretty soon. I'll try and keep you guys posted on that. So that's it for this week. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at jackxconnor. Like me on Facebook at facebook.com/jackconnormusic. Also, feel free to check out Vertebreaker. Check out the band at vertebreaker.net. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, make sure you email me at jackconnorpodcast@gmail.com or tweet me with the hashtag Phoenix Report. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks again.